Hi everyone, I am Sishun Huang from National Kaohsiung University of Science and Technology, Taiwan. Today, we want to talk about an algorithm that uses both bounding and region properties for interactive segmentation based on graph cards. This algorithm was proposed in the paper entitled as Interactive Graph Cards for Optimal Boundary and Region Segmentation of Objects in ND Images in ICCV 2001. The outline of this lecture includes introduction about the motivation and the problem description of interactive segmentation, and the central idea of the algorithm using graph cards. Graph-based modeling about the construction of a graph, the cost definitions of the edges on the constructed graph, and the process of cost minimization for finding the optimal segmentation. Until now, the fully automatic segmentation is still a top problem in computer vision. Fortunately, its difficulty can be alleviated via user guidance. The algorithm that performs segmentation based on user guidance is called interactive segmentation. Firstly, the user identifies the parts of the object and the background in the image. Then, the algorithm computes a qualified segmentation that adheres to the user setting. In detail, for a given image and two sets of object and background points provided by the user, the goal of the interactive segmentation is to find a segmentation and assignment of all points to background or object labels. This segmentation should well separate the object points from background ones, while adhering to user constraints. Consider a 3x3 image, where the user specifies the green points as the object, blue point as the background. The interactive segmentation assigns a label to every point and results in a clear separation between the object and the background regions. The labels assigned to these two user-specified points, green for object and the blue for background after segmentation, remain unchanged. The central idea of the algorithm introduced in this paper is to enforce both boundary and region properties. The boundary property means that pixels with significant intensity differences from their neighbors are considered boundaries. For example, pixels with large intensity difference, such as these 2 points, are considered as boundaries. The region property indicates that pixels with similar intensities to object and background are likely to be labeled accordingly. For instance, the pixels with intensity 6 close to object intensity and 0 close to background intensity are likely to be labeled as object and background respectively. Additionally, the proposed algorithm formulates the interactive segmentation as an optimization problem by defining a cost function E based on 2 properties of the segmentation C. The cost function E is defined as this equation, where R and V are region and boundary cost functions respectively. The parameter lambda controls the relative importance of region and boundary properties. In this context, C is a segmentation, which is an assignment of points to either object or background labels. Below are some possible segmentations, where green points represent objects and the blue points indicate backgrounds. According to such a formulation, the algorithm aims at minimizing E so as to find an optimal segmentation C hat as expressed in the given equation. Assume the costs of these segmentations are displayed here. The segmentation with the lowest cost is considered as the result. This paper solves this optimization problem using the GraphCut algorithm. Initially, it models the optimization problem as a graph. Then, it determines the optimal segmentation, denoted as C hat, through the MinimaCut algorithm. For modeling, this paper uses an undirected graph G consisting of VEW to describe an image. V is a set of vertices. E is a set of edges defined under a neighborhood system. W is a set of weights assigned to the edges. Next, we give the definitions of VEW in this paper respectively. For the vertex definition, each pixel is modeled as a pixel vertex V, and two terminal vertices, namely source and sink, are added. Therefore, the vertex set V is the union of pixel vertices and source and sink terminal vertices. For the edge definition, spatial relation between two neighboring pixel vertices, Vi and Vj, are modeled by a neighboring edge E sub ij. Additionally, two terminal edges, Svi and Tvi, are added for each pixel vertex Vi. Therefore, the edge set E is the union of all neighboring edges and terminal edges Svi and Tvi of all pixel vertices. For the N4 neighborhood system, the neighborhood edges are indicated by the red lines. The terminal edges between the source and each pixel vertex V are indicated by the green lines, while those between the sink and each pixel vertex V are indicated by the blue lines. For the weight definition, a weight assigned to an edge E sub ij represents the penalty or cost when the labels of Vi and Vj are different. This paper uses the weights on neighboring edges to encode the boundary property, and the weights on terminal edges to encode the region property. Take this red vertex as an example. It has a small intensity difference of 2 with the vertex above it. According to the boundary property, they should have the same label. If they do not have the same label, we assign a large cost to this edge. Conversely, the red vertex have a large intensity difference with the vertex to its right. Therefore, we assign a small cost to this edge because they should have different labels. For the costs on the terminal edges, they are used to encode the region property. The intensity of the red vertex is closer to the object vertex than to the background vertex. According to the region property, the red vertex is more likely to be labeled as the object. Therefore, a large cost is assigned to the terminal edge connected to the source if the red vertex is not labeled as the object. Conversely, the cost of the terminal edge connected to the sink is small. Then, we provide the detailed definition of the cost functions used in this paper. In this paper, the cost function of the neighboring edge is defined as ad hoc function. For the neighboring edge E sub ij that connects Vi and Vj, the cost of E sub ij is given by this equation. Here, the two terms represent the pixel intensities of the vertices Vi and Vj, and the sigma represents the camera noise, which is set as 2.0 in our example. The cost assigned to the green edge is last calculated using this equation, and equals to 0.6. Similarly, the cost of the blue edge is 0.04. The weight assigned to the source terminal edge E sub Si is the penalty when the label of the vertex Vi is not object. Therefore, the edge connecting the source to the object vertices given by the user is assigned as a large penalty K if its label is incorrectly set as background, violating the user setting. Conversely, the edge connecting the source and the background vertices has 0 penalty. In this paper, the cost of the edge connecting the source and the unknown vertex is calculated as the negative log likelihood of background intensity distribution. It implies that the closer the pixel intensity is to the background region, the lower the cost assigned to the edge. This paper directly uses the background intensity histogram to represent the background intensity distribution. The cost of the edge connected to this red unknown vertex can be computed using this given equation. Assume lambda is equal to 1, the cost to this edge is 4.6. Similarly, the cost for this red edge is calculated using the given equation and is equal to 0.1. This picture displays all the costs associated with the source terminal edges. For the sink terminal edge E sub Ti, its cost is defined as the penalty incurred when the label of the vertex Vi is not background. This cost definition is the inverse of that for the source terminal edge. Specifically, if Vi is marked as an object vertex by the user, the cost of the edge E sub Ti is 0. Conversely, if Vi is background vertex, the cost of the edge E sub Ti is set to a large value K. For the unknown vertex Vi, the cost of the edge E sub Ti is defined as the negative log likelihood of intensity distribution of object region. Similarly, the object intensity distribution is represented by an intensity histogram, as shown in this picture. Then, the calculation of the cost for the edges connecting unknown vertices to sink vertices follows the same procedure as for the source terminal edges. For instance, the cost of the red edge is calculated using the given equation and is equal to 4.6. This picture displays all the costs associated with the sink terminal edges. Finally, we have constructed a graph for interactive segmentation as shown in this picture. Under such cost definitions, the segmentation problem can be formulated as a cost minimization problem. Specifically, a segmentation is a partition or coded cut of all vertices V into two disjoint sets, capital S and capital T, This means that the union of the sets S and T equals to V, and their intersection is empty. Additionally, the source vertex S is in the set S, while the sink vertex T is in the set T. The cost of car C is defined as the sum of the weights of the edges that connect the sets S and T. The following equation can represent this. The optimal segmentation C head is the cut with the minimal cost, referred to as the minima cut as expressed in this equation. The minima cut can be found via well-known maxima flow algorithm, which is beyond scope of this explanation. In this example, after applying maxima flow algorithm, we can identify the minima cut as displayed in this picture. The dashed lines represent the edges between the sets S and T. Therefore, we obtain an optimal segmentation in the following way. All vertices connected to the source vertex are labeled as object vertices, while those connected to the sink vertex are labeled as background vertices. In this video, we have introduced a graph-based interactive segmentation algorithm. Thanks for your listening and have a wonderful day.